Have you ever dreamed of building the career in life you truly want, but felt unsure where to start? The Career Capital Collective podcast with Sarah Robson and Kayleigh Gaspari is your blueprint for success, offering actionable advice on navigating career pivot. Join us in redefining success on your own terms.
Hi, guys.
Welcome back to the Career Capital Collective podcast. We're your hosts, Kayleigh Gaspari
And Sarah Robson.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about today, Sarah?
Expanding more on why we're making this podcast and how we know each other and why we feel we want to even do this in the first place. What is the experience that we have?
Why should you even listen to Sarah and I is essentially what we're saying. Funny story of how we actually met. Sarah and I know each other from university. So we met at London, like in London, Ontario, at the University of Western.
Yep.
For those Canadians out there, shout
Woot
out.
woot.
And we had psychology class together.
Yeah, first year psychology class.
Psych 101. And then we didn't, I honestly thought Sarah was really funny and cool, but we didn't become close during that time.
No, not at all.
Fast forward, 10 years or so later, I ended up moving to San Francisco, Bay Area, for a job at a food tech company. I was a senior director at the time, and I had seen and followed Sarah on social media because you had quite a few followers at the time. And
3,000, what's up?
So for context, I have 600. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to slide into this girl's DMs. And I slid into her DMs, and then we became friends and realized that we had quite a bit in common. So here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. So I've been living in the States for a while now. When we had met, I had just kind of moved to San Francisco. I didn't really know that many people other than my sister, and kind of in the friend collecting mode. And yeah, we really hit it off. I think it'd be helpful to give some background on why are we doing a career podcast?
Right.
Why the importance of that, especially right now. I mean, I know we're both in our almost mid-30s. So sad.
I'm in my mid-30s, fully.
Mid-30s is a new mid-20s.
Exactly. Well, I think on that point, I personally have grown up in a background that was consulting. I've lived and traveled to actually over 52 countries. I did the math the other day, which was crazy.
That's insane. 52
I
countries.
I know.
That's crazy.
My boss was he's like, oh, I'm jealous. I almost beat you. But just having some of those experiences, specifically coming from the world of operations consulting, I came from a manufacturing background. I was consistently in male-dominated executive rooms and whatnot.
And were these all over the world? Where were you working in these manufacturing jobs?
So I started my career after I finished up school, after I graduated in Australia. I did some
That was a master's program?
No, it was my undergrad.
Oh, okay.
It was my undergrad. And so I ended up moving back. I ended up moving to Thailand. And then after I lived in Thailand, I taught English there.
How did you choose Thailand?
That's a good question. You know those programs that they have? It was all the rage back in the day, right?
Yeah, 2013, baby.
2013. So I ended up teaching English in Thailand, of course, ended up running out of money, did that for a year, came back to Canada and immediately got a job in consulting.
Got it.
So I ended up going into operations implementation consulting, which is essentially you go into businesses, a private equity firm and or a executive team says, hey, here's how I need to turn around my business. And so you kind of got this experience of working, in steel manufacturing facilities as well as tech companies, kind of all across the board, but always working on performance improvement, which is kind of where I got my business legs, so to speak.
Yeah. So they hire a consultant like you, and then you go and you cut all these costs. Were people scared when they saw you show up at the workforce?
Yes, and I want to refute something really quick because it's not just about cutting costs, it's about adding value. And I think that's really important because people perceive consultants to be cost cutters. Oh my gosh, I'm going to come in and I'm going to lose my job. And I really didn't like projects like that because it feeds into that kind of narrative. it's amazing to be able to go in and actually like elevate the organization, have people advance in their careers.
Yeah.
There are ways to make things more efficient without just people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
So, maybe you're doing a sales project, a sales process project where you're actually improving how is our actual conversion funnel for sales working? How are we getting more leads and we're getting more volume out in the market?
Mm-hmm.
So there's many different ways to skin the cat, but it was essentially
Right.
about value creation.
Very cool. Okay, so then you're back in Toronto, right, after Thailand, or am I mixing this up?
So I ended up, I was
Yeah.
in Toronto, and the clients I was working with were all over. Like most notably, I started doing supply chain jobs, and I'll go into that. But essentially, I was working in California. I got the chance to work at some wineries, which was really cool.
Amazing.
And we were doing like big supply chain planning projects, which was essentially like how do we get all of the wine that needs to be produced when it needs to be produced without losing so much waste and getting it to the customers in time.
Wow.
Which was it was interesting.
Yeah.
And then after that, I started my own consulting business. From there, I did that for, I want to say 2 years. And then I ended up doing my MBA in Spain. So I moved to Spain. I did my MBA there. Then I went on to work for Amazon in Germany for a little while just to kind of,
Crazy.
I wanted to move out of the operations space and kind of complement that with tech.
Yeah.
And then I ended up moving to California, which is where I met Sarah. And I worked at a food tech company there, like a Silicon Valley kind of VC-backed,
Yeah.
venture capital-backed company. And now I'm actually living in Tennessee.
Go Nashville.
And I'm a supply chain executive. I've gone back to my roots in manufacturing, and that was I moved here like in January of this year. So.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And just got married and bought a house.
It's a little more affordable in Nashville than it is in the Bay Area.
Fair.
But my journey, I've really enjoyed it, but it hasn't always been easy. And something I really admire about you, Sarah, is how resilient you've been and like how you've had to kind of push through and grind it out to get what you want. So can you tell us about your background? Because I love this story.
Yeah. Gosh, grind it out is such a good way to describe it. I think looking back, I mean, I always honestly have chosen probably the harder path, but I do feel like it's all been worth it. I, as Kayleigh mentioned, went to Western, graduated, and then when I graduated, I didn't have a job right away, and I ended up working as a server at Joey's. Shout out to Joey's in the Eaton Center in Toronto. And I was like an account manager by day, server by night, and then my sister and I were literally like sleeping on a mattress on the floor in this house in the beaches, very glamorous. And my sister ended up getting this full-time offer for a role in San Francisco. And so she was still in school. The job offer was a year later. And I was like, oh my gosh, she just got an offer to go to San Francisco. Like we are like a little competitive and such. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she's going to get this job and move to San Francisco, like what am I doing with my life? So it kind of just lit like a fire under my ass. And I started aggressively trying to get a job in the US. And I had one in with one company in New York. And it was my friend's dad's company that had an office in New York. So it was like a bit far-fetched. But I was like, that is the only company I even relatively know. And I'm going to figure out how to get a job there. So I applied for the job. I interviewed. I didn't get the job. I ended up flying to New York and like literally just showed up at their office one day. And they like had no option but to interview me. I actually didn't get the job after that. And then I cold called like the head of sales pretty much every week for like 6 months. And this is probably over like 9 months of me trying to like get this job at this company. I remember it was like right before Christmas in 2013. I cold called him. He picks up and he's like, "Fine, Sarah, fine. You can have the job, but the condition is that you start on Monday." And at that point, I didn't have like a work visa. There was no like immigration lawyer. It was like start on Monday, but like how? Like how am I going to start on Monday? So I had like the job offer. I quickly talked to a couple of friends that had jobs in the U.S. and I was like, what is the immigration process for a visa? I really like scrappily put together a package for a TN visa.
Which we don't recommend doing on your own, by the way.
No, I would only ever go with an immigration lawyer at any point. I will say doing it on your own is not the recommended way. But I mean, I ended up bringing my stuff to the border. I had all the proper documentation, thank goodness, despite not having a lawyer, and they gave me a 1-year work visa. So I moved to New York. I didn't have anywhere to live. I mean, I literally showed up with one suitcase, and I think I maybe had like 400 Canadian dollars, and that was it. So, but I had this job offer, and I started like 4 days later. So I was like, well, at least I know that I have the job, and I can just figure it out. I tried to think about any person I knew that was living in New York at the time. I reached out to an old friend that I had met, like dancing at a party at Dalhousie. She ended up responding on Facebook, and she was like, yeah, you could actually just stay at my place. I'm only going to be here for like a week. You can stay at my place for 3 weeks. And I literally was able to stay there for free, and it saved me, completely saved me. So she's actually now one of my best friends, and she has 2 kids. I was there when she met her husband. It was just so funny because that relationship was so random, and it ended up turning into something so beautiful. So ended up that was like my entry point into New York. I had a sales job. I did that job for 1 year, and then after the 1-year period, I was selling to investment banks, and I used kind of that experience of selling to investment banks. I was like, I need to get into investment banking. From like an immigration standpoint,
Right.
it's having a more kind of qualifications for a job, especially for finance. There's just many more visa options. And I knew that they would be able to sponsor. So I think it was in twofold, but I kind of just had my head set on making sure I'd get into investment banking. So I had no qualifications, by the way, never took like a finance class. And all of the companies that I was selling to, I just like asked the heads of investment banking, like, are you hiring? Are you hiring? I actually ended up getting a job as an assistant. And then that job as an assistant ended up leading to a job as an analyst, then an associate. And then I was kind of just on the path. But just like a very non-traditional way of getting into an industry that is so quote unquote difficult. And by the way, it is so difficult to get into. But I think for me, like, there's like no is just not an answer. Like, I don't think I'm honestly the smartest like finance person, but I know that I will outwork pretty much anybody. I will pull crazy long nights. Like, I will do all-nighters. Like, I will do that extra put that extra leg work in. And I think that's honestly like what's been able to help me like further than anything else. Because if you like look on paper, like from a background standpoint, like, I don't know, when you just don't have any qualifications, like, kind of is what it is.
I think that's really, well, first of all, I respect it mad, because I think it's really difficult to not follow a traditional path. And like, that's a huge part of why we're doing this. It's what I'm realizing as I get like older and more mature is you can really define success on your own terms. Like, people are making careers out of, social media and other things. Like, I went the traditional path. I did business school. I did all the right things that I should do as like a good girl or what have you. And I came to the realization that, that doesn't necessarily mean that those things that I've done will make me more or less successful than somebody else who's willing to work really hard, which I think like we're both very resourceful in that way. We definitely go hard in the paint. And I do think it's interesting, or what we want to talk to you guys about is like, how do you define success on your own terms?
Like, what does that even mean?
What does it mean? Exactly. Define that. And then how do you actually get the tools to be able to do it? Because we're taught you need to go to school, you need to get a good degree, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And she's like a great example of how you can be successful and you don't have to do those things.
Yeah. I mean, I think even now, I don't know, it's been 10 plus years since we graduated university. And I think like my future kids, like, who knows if university is even going to be the answer, right?
And in this job market especially, like, my husband right now he's a trained pilot and he's still looking for a job. Like, it's really tough. So I think defining or being able to kind of be on the offense instead of the defense when it comes to like creating a career that you love and enjoy is really important.
Yeah. Okay, so to turn the question on you, like, what do you define as a successful career?
Oh gosh, putting me on the hot seat. My definition of success has changed as I've accomplished the things that have been on my, what I want to say, career to-do list. I feel like my priorities have changed because I have the luxury of saying, oh, I became a VP. Now, can I live my life differently? So Success when I was younger, like growing up in my 20s, I went into consulting. I didn't even know what that word meant. Like, I
Right.
remember sitting in class and they're like, oh, yeah, there's these internships in consulting. And I was like, what is that? I had
Right.
to look it up.
Right.
And so then I decided, oh, I'm going to get an internship in consulting. I'm going to be
Yeah.
like one of the kids that's able to do that in our class.
Yeah.
And I did. And then after that, I graduated top of my class. Like, I was consistently trying to push the boundaries.
Yeah.
And in a way, they were things I needed to do to prove to myself that I was worthy of the job and I could, succeed on my own. I didn't have to rely on anybody else.
Mhm.
And so it was like a checklist of I needed to make a lot of money.
Mhm.
I wanted to be self-sustaining. I wanted to be independent.
Mhm.
And for me at the time, like when I was in my early mid-20s, I wanted to travel. So, that's part of the reason I said I wanted to go do my MBA in Spain. I want to work in Europe for a bit. Like that
Right.
was a dream. That dream wasn't everything I thought it would be on paper, and that's why I ended up moving back, and my new definition of success is, like, a little bit more balanced, I'd say, and
Yeah.
different.
The word balance, I mean, that's
So
so important.
cliche.
No, but it's so important. I think having I would say like balance is actually something that I have not really ever had. Like I think by kind of pushing always like trying to go 10 steps further than like what
Right.
most people are doing. But we're probably going to cut
Let's
this
just
part
keep
out. I
going.
don't know what the fuck we're talking
I
about.
wanna talk about like, I think after succeeding on what you could call the traditional to-do list of
Yeah.
success, like, okay, I wanna work in consulting, and then I wanna be best in my class, and I wanna
Get
work in
promoted.
Europe. Exactly, get
Right.
promoted first out of everyone in my cohort.
Yeah.
It came to a point where I felt that I had made it in a way, and I had sacrificed a lot in my life because I had made those choices. So, like, I had never really had a very serious relationship up until
Mm.
like my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And so when, I decided to leave Europe, I wanted more of like a balanced lifestyle.
Right.
And I decided to prioritize things like friendships, community,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm now married and I wanted a relationship. So
Yeah.
I think it's whatever your definition of success is, you are in the driver's seat and you get to choose that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of like growing up and getting older and kind of figuring your life out.
Yeah.
It can change.
Totally.
And
Totally.
maybe I'll ask you the same question. What is your definition of success?
Gosh, I mean, it's definitely changed so much, but I think my ultimate goal is to have really like passive income streams that's like making money when you sleep while I'm also like doing what I love and kind of creating, I guess, like really feeling like fulfilled, like to my core and like
Right.
really happy with what I'm doing day to day. I think there's certain milestones and career paths that I wanted to prove to myself that I could do. I mean, getting into investment banking with no experience was one of them. Getting into private equity was another one. Being able to move to LA and being able to move kind of to other places in California. Like those are all things I think that, I don't know, in certain like I am like a relationship person, and I think in prior relationships it was more like them calling the shots and like determining where I was going to live, like what we were doing. And I think just like living a life where I'm able to kind of design like where I'm headed and what I'm doing day to day while also making money and enough money to like live my life. So I think I think some of it's still like a dream, but I think even having this podcast and just like talking about our aspirations, it's like when you say out loud what you want, then you like see to believe that it's really true and it's possible, and you start saying no to all the things that are not aligned with where
Right.
you're trying to go and your goals. So I know that's kind of following along with like manifestation, but
I was just going to say, are we going to bring up the M word in the podcast?
yeah, I am all in with the manifestation and manifesting in general. But I mean, I think for me, I completely manifested my original life in LA. And then I've recently moved back, which is really what I wanted. So, I think creating life on your own terms, I
Right.
think that keeps changing like every year, every decade. But also like setting yourself up for financial freedom is such an unlock, like maximizing your 401k, like investing in the stock market, investing in crypto. Like those are all things that I think take a base level. Obviously, you need to like understand what you're doing, but I think that's also a way of like making money when you sleep,
That's right.
right?
And
So
let's talk about that because when we grew up in school, we weren't necessarily taught like how to manage your finances. Like
not at
a
all.
lot of my friends have, they're trying to get into it now and we're in our 30s
Yeah.
and it's a really empowering to be able to have basic knowledge. Like even
Right.
for me not understanding the tax differences between like the US and Canada, like
Yeah.
you can save so much money by being smart with your finances and how you invest and
Hmm.
not all debt is bad debt. I think having guests that we will talk about, like in addition to yourself having a
Yeah.
finance background, would be great for our listeners. Like,
Yeah.
I want women to be able to feel like they have the freedom to, leave relationships or be on their own and feel that independence without
Right.
feeling like, oh, I have to rely on somebody else to make my career and be successful on my own terms.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's just like living your happiest version of yourself, like whatever that is, right?
Exactly.
And doing something that fulfills you while also being able to like live and like pay for your own life. I think now it's hard because obviously it's a tough job market. People are losing their jobs, but I also think there's such a large window of all these new career paths and
That's right.
opportunities, and obviously everything content creation is completely blowing up. So yeah, I think it's also hard to know like where to look
Yeah. Or where to
because
start
and we're
even.
like fed so much stuff from I mean a billion one like influencers from
Right.
obviously different podcasts. Like I think it's just like hard to navigate and like kind of dig through the noise.
Yeah. It's overwhelming the amount of content essentially that we're being fed. And I find myself often questioning, like, am I doing the right thing? Because I get distracted by someone's Instagram where they're like, you should buy land or you should do all these things, right?
Right.
And I'm like, well, do I need to be like a TikTok influencer?
Yeah.
And so I feel like, not to bring it back to the manifestation, but like having a very clear vision or plan and having that physically on paper
Yeah.
has been helpful. Like working backwards from the end goal, once
Yeah.
you do figure that out, it allows you to not get as distracted by some of the things that are happening.
Hmm.
And for me, like I have to recenter myself constantly. Like I'm sure I have ADHD or something, but I'm able to think, is this aligned? Is this activity, is this person, is this exercise essentially aligned with me being able to achieve my end goal? If not, is it really worth my time?
So how do you know if it's aligned?
Well, I think once you figure out what that is
Yeah.
and you have that vision in your mind, and it's very easy to know if it's on that path.
Hmm.
So, for example, like moving to Nashville and taking this particular job, I was getting distracted by other job opportunities, and I was privileged enough to have multiple offers. And the reason I wanted to take this is one of my end goals in life is to be able to have like multiple businesses and a
Hmm.
search fund. And to, the reason I chose this job was because it would give me potentially CEO experience one day.
Right.
And, that's something that potential investors and people I'd work with would value over maybe, say, like a tech job somewhere else.
Hmm.
So that was an exercise where I'm like, it's really shiny for me to want to go do this other thing and exciting.
Right.
But is that aligned with like what my end goal is? And I had to kind of like reel myself back.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I would say for me, like feeling aligned, it's like always just like this gut feeling
Mm,
of it's just like satisfaction. Like I literally can just like feel it in my core if it's aligned or if it's not aligned. I think I recently did a human design like activity where they kind of it was like with a human design therapist, quote unquote, and they read through like what things you're kind of pre-programmed and what things just kind of based on your environment affect you. And for me, it's just, I've always thought I've like been very like intuitive and like
hmm.
gut kind of. I usually listen to my gut, and it all said like everything that you feel in your gut is like the right
Right
way
thing.
and the way you should be anchoring how you make the decisions in your life. And it was just
Oh,
yeah.
interesting. And I wonder if is it different for different people? Like I'm talking in a very structured way, which maybe works for me. And then you're talking in a way that's like, hey, this is intuitive.
Yeah.
Like how would our listeners kind of make that real for them?
I mean, it's a great question. I think it's probably a combination. I think it depends where you are in your career,
Right.
right? Like, I think when you are graduating university, at that point, you really need work experience.
Right.
And the hardest thing when you're trying to get a job when you're 22 is like you need already prior work experience to get a job, but then you also have no work experience. So it's like taking that first step. of getting any work experience, I think is worth your while. And then as you build your career, you then will have more flexibility
Right.
to say take a job that's like maybe more related to like how I don't know, you like it more, like it's more related to your
Right.
passion.
Let's play that out though, because I think a lot of folks, and I know this is something that I experienced early in my career, you don't have any of that experience. You're coming out of school, like
Yeah.
you're probably sitting here thinking, where do I even start? Even if I have this lofty dream, like you can't just get there. So there's kind of
100%.
a process here. And so can we talk a little bit about building up towards that end goal? So let's just say we think we know what our end goal wants is we want to
Yeah.
be, you know, an executive at an AI company as an example. You
Right.
don't have any of that work experience. You will need to be resourceful. Like
Yeah.
what are some tips and tricks you would give to folks around that?
I mean, for me, what I did in school is like I had 3 different like side jobs. Like I picked up every random side job you possibly could. A, to pay for school, but B, I just knew I was going to graduate and I wouldn't have any like work experience. So I think getting experience like along the way, even if it's I did like an unpaid internship
Me
and
too.
like as much as it sucked you're like working for free. I'm like, is that even legal in 2025? Because I feel like it's not.
Maybe not in this. Gen Zs are not working for free.
Yeah, I'm like, why did I work like 60 hours a week for a whole summer for free? Like that doesn't make any sense. But I think you kind of just do what you got to do to like get get any
That's right.
experience, whether it's paid or unpaid. And then it'll help set you up to have something on your resume so that when it comes to say that AI company you want to work with, like you have some relevant AI experience.
Right. Even if you're an analyst or you're doing
Yeah,
something that you
be
consider
an
to be low
intern, AI
level.
intern.
Right.
Good old AI intern.
Good old AI intern.
But I think when I at least graduated university, like I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I
Right.
felt like I could have gone in a million different directions. I think my big aspirations then were buying a house in Toronto
Right.
and being an executive at Rogers, the like telecommunications company. Like
Let's
that
go.
was like, but I think your environment really shapes like what your aspirations end up being, which I think could be. I think it's good and it's also like dangerous.
Yeah.
But I mean, moving to New York and then you are seeing like the most extremes in life.
Right.
Moving to LA, I would say the same thing. And I would say my goalpost has moved significantly. A, because I'm just like around people that are expanding me like beyond what I thought was like honestly humanly possible from like a career and life standpoint.
Right. No, I think that's really important though. There's this expectation of when you're in school, you get a job and you're supposed to be working towards this one thing. Like just because you write it down on paper and you're starting to get that experience, it doesn't mean that it's going to it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like I've pivoted so many times. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go work at Amazon. That's going to be my career. I'm going to live in
Right.
Europe." And I felt this sense of shame when I didn't like what I was doing because you work so hard for this goal. I
Right.
was telling people about it and I was like, I got the best tech job.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it can feel almost embarrassing to say, like, hey, my plan didn't work out. But you learn so much from that experience. And
Yeah.
once I was able to get over myself and be like, you know what, that wasn't a fit and that is okay.
Totally.
I was able to learn from that and be like, well, what do I actually like? Because I definitely know what I don't like. And
Yeah.
it would have been a, well, what if type of situation.
Well, it's like what if you just stayed there and was unhappy for
Exactly.
years, right?
And I think a lot of people are in that trap. And so that's
Yeah.
why we want to say, defining success on your own terms.
Yeah.
It really does mean you get to have that line in the sand of what it is that I would make me so fulfilled and so happy. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be not a
Yeah.
bumpy road. It's not going to
Totally.
suck at times and be
Yeah.
hard. But you can always veer yourself back.
Totally. And I think at least for me, like my end goal really is to like be so fulfilled by what I'm doing every day. And I think the main way to do that is literally trying so many different things. It's like trying something, if it doesn't work, switch, do things on the side. It's like really working to find what you're truly passionate about.
Right.
Some people just get lucky and the very first job they have, it's literally what they're most passionate about. Like I look at my sister and I'm like, she is just born and bred for venture capital. And she just like is so obsessed with it. And so I think I've always been like, wow, that's so inspiring, but like, how can I find that too?
Right. But I also think all those people, they make it look easy. Like everything we see on social media or even like comparing ourselves to others like on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did they do it? They just figured it out. And it's like, all of the stories around all the things that they went through and their struggles, like they didn't just land there by accident, right? Like they
Right.
probably worked their butts off to get there. Like, my
100%.
boss is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
And I think like what we want to expose is make this really relatable for everybody.
It's like,
that
how
you
do you do this? Like, what is the sausage making?
and you can be just like, I'm a regular person. I
Yeah.
don't consider myself to be like crazy smart or outrageously successful. And
Yeah.
I do think it has to do with a little bit of like focus, planning.
Yeah.
I've asked for a ton of help.
Yeah.
Like I have an executive coach. I've had one for a really long time because I
Yeah.
was like, this shit is hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And it takes a ton of time and a ton of focus.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But like it's worth it and you deserve it. So that's why we wanted to make this podcast.
Yeah.
Is make those sausages.
We are so grateful and appreciative that you have spent your time listening to this. And I think I'm just excited for the upcoming shows. And if you have any suggestions on topics you want us to cover, just let us know.
Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. The links are all in our description. And if there's anything else you want us to talk about, we've got your back. So thanks for joining.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Career Capital Collective podcast with Sarah Robson and Kayleigh Gaspari.
We hope you feel inspired and empowered to take charge of your career and build the life you truly want. Follow us on Instagram at Career Capital Collective.